Dear diarrhea full of shit, just playing along, me, myself, and I, no one else, so yo, I'm so legit. Um, I am, um, you know, lowering myself into a stupor of drinking. It's just sort of a thing I'm doing right now. I am an alcoholic. One might argue, the genetic factor, this, that, and the other. I do believe that to be a thing. Okay, both my uncles on my dad's side were alcoholics. They drank themselves to death. They died like when they were in their 60s. My dad at least used to be, maybe not so much anymore, but one of those one drink at the end of the evening, sort of guys. I remember my intervention. He was like, if anything, it's my fault. Every single one of them broke down into tears. And I stood there stone cold, whatever, and I just listened. Whatever, that I kind of got teary-eyed because they all had to write a letter, was my sister. Because she's like for some reason, I just had the biggest connection with her. And I'm not like this sappy ass, right? I'm not like, this is little sis, fuck with her, you fuck with me. It's like, no, I'm not that guy. But, like even with my brother-in-law, that when they were dating, there was this issue of like, he's just, oh, I don't even remember. It's like because they have a good relationship, my sister and my brother-in-law, and as much shit as I talk about my brother-in-law, I do believe that underneath it all, he is a good father, and so is my sister is a good mother. He's just got this ego, thing that we just can't get past, and I'm pulling rank on him, and I've like stated this, I've pulled this shit. I'm not gonna get into that, but it's like, fuck, just stop talking, asshole. He's the type of dude who would throw his mother under the bus, if it meant winning an ego contest, and he's just he's an only child, and I have a cousin who's an only child, so just human behavior, you know what I mean? Filters, how you were brought up, what you were exposed to. Different people bring different things to the table, and a lot of it depends on what they were exposed to. You can only extrapolate so much. A lot of it you have to be exposed to. You have to see it. You have to experience it. Like, whoa, shit, okay, that's the way that works? Oh, okay. A poo isn't necessarily a good person. That's not stereotypical. You put 10 people in a room, 1 to 3 of them are going to be undesirable, unless his name is a poo, then it's, 8 to 9 of them are going to be undesirable. What? Isn't that a bad thing? Well, that's empirical. So, you mean, Ilmar, Mrs. Fake, wine company accusing, hardworking, loving or God-fearing, depending on who you ask, work hard, play hard Americans are the enemy? What? You might want to stop talking, bitch. But, on a global scale, like I said, as far as humanity is concerned, you might want to shut the fuck up. Really, every Friday you chant, death to America? I don't know. For some reason, there's a part of me deep down, and you'll call it Ruriakism or whatever, but there's a part of me that just says, yeah, you're kind of a bad folk. As far as humanity is concerned, it would be better if at least your value system, we won't go as far as to say as you, but your way of thinking and internalizing the world and reality, it would be better for humanity if you did not exist. So it's like, I don't know. Boys can play in girls' sports. I don't know. 2 + 2 = 4 is a racial construct. I don't know. You might want to shut the fuck up with that. Get woke and might want to be on the right side of history shit. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. Just trying to help you out. You know what I mean? You might want to shut the fuck up. But anyway, after that digress, what the fuck was I talking about? There's some shit I've got, in holding, so to speak. And I'm going to make some sober, presentations of them. And it's kind of interesting because it flows from one to the next, a certain type of people. And it's basically law enforcement. And it talks about anything from, legitimate cappers, police officers, from armed security guards. And it's an interesting bunch of information because it calls out what I've been saying for years. And, as I've said, stereotypes do exist for a reason. And I'm obviously going to wait till I'm sober and I can put my thoughts, and I'll actually take notes. I'll actually make like a case for this shit. So I got all these videos saved, in private mode, that I'm going to, point this shit out. And, dear online family and friends, I'll go ahead and kind of give the rough outline, That way, even though we're a family here at Didlow University, Rubber Pecker Floppy Dick University, I don't want to be that guy, it's just like, you just go watch this, So I kind of want to be able to present kind of a rough, quick overview. And it's just something that I've noticed, because these things pop up. And then you end up going down these, you kind of end up binging on this shit, And it's just something that I've decided to kind of offer my opinion on because, like I said, I've got a folder. It's Amen Drop the Mic 2, because Amen Drop the Mic 1 is getting full. And weak people make hard and stupid times. And, yeah, there are a lot of bitch fucking people out there. And, the general rule that I give, is in a room full of 10 people, 1 to 3 are going to have undesirable characteristics. That might be anything as low level as chewing your gum loud. Or it might be that, you're a fucking asshole and you're abusive, towards just people, whatever. You're that punk, And then when you get 100 people in a room, it's like it's amplified. So if you have 100 people in a room, most likely you're going to encounter somebody who, has 100,000, followers on their Instagram who's advocating that somebody, not themselves, but somebody else should, take a rubber band, to Trump, or something like that. It's like, these are truly evil, chicken shit, cowardly people. It's like that's not exactly chewing your gum loud and being inconsiderate. That's a whole new level. So there's a lot of people, in the world that you encounter on a day-to-day basis. And most people are generally good. But negativity holds more weight than positivity, So like I said, you encounter 10 people. That one, Karen or Kyle that you encountered, it's easy, to get home to your safe space or your apartment or whatever and be like, man, people are fucking garbage, And it's like, well, yeah, no, but yeah, because there's, out of 10 people, there was that one. And, you're doing the odds in your head, you know what I mean? It's like, shit, just how this shit works, This was a thing for a while, like the nurse who over-administered, anesthesiologist because she found out that the dude was, pro-Trump or America. So she murdered this dude in cold blood. And as far as the law is concerned, it can be regarded as, an oops. But as far as God and the devil is concerned, you murdered that dude because you didn't like the way he sank. So, and they go home and they kiss their kids and, tell their husband, that, blah, 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 they love them and they're fighting the good fight and they're living the American dream. And it's like, okay. So, and don't get me started on, Bible thumping or anything like that. That's not what I'm about. I consider myself a Christian, just a bad one. But, like I said in another audio presentation, I believe I posted it, these evil cowards, they distance themselves. All the people that they're fucking over, be it Boeing, the people who have died, because they wanted to take shortcuts on safety, and that, these 12 CEOs that recently went to, China, it's like these are the same motherfuckers who are worth, $6 to $8 billion, yet they want to, cut 10% of their workforce, because it'll save money, and these people lose their livelihood, they lose their house, and this is just Jane and John Doe who have, 2 or 3 kids, and you just basically destroyed their lives because you want to save money. So I do understand being, competitive on the global market. You don't want to be pushed out of business, but, it is what it is. So anyway, I'm at 12 minutes in. I'm going to go ahead and stop talking. But I am planning on doing, I was also planning on doing that video about, this, that, and the other for Katie Boo, and I never got around to that. And plus, the Katie Boo game has kind of changed. That's a tragedy. I do mean that. I do feel that way. I got a little bit emotional, just a little bit. This is what it is. You could tell, in my voice, And, I, like, shit, man. That's what it is. I don't want to, lead it this way or that way, but, that happens. You'll see dudes who are clearly strong dudes who get emotional, right? For whatever reason. Like I said, you're allowed that every now and then as a dude. But I'm going to go ahead and leave that, because I don't know Katie Boo from nothing. And on the one hand, it's like, yes, that's tragic. But on the other hand, it's like, fuck you, bitch. And I was a couple sheets to the wind, right? So I was a little bit more on the side. Versus if I'm was stone cold sober, it's like, okay. Yeah, that's a real fucking tragedy. Yeah. Yeah, anyway, Cry Me a River, fuck you. Which is kind of where I've, kind of moved on to, my position. Because she's a rotting corpse now, but if she went through with it, it's like, yeah, that girl, fuck, dude. I know it sounds sappy, and, who the fuck do you think you are? Get over yourself. It's like, no, dude. I'm talking. You're thinking. You're reacting. You're feeling. I am talking. That girl needed a heartfelt hug. No, not a, hey, you're my girlfriend. Who, this is, she needed a one-way, it's hard, it's just, it's hard for me to put it into words, Because like them you could just tell anyway. It's just, be kind, please don't, fuck, this girl is going to fail. This chick don't have it, and most chicks don't, like if something happens, they're just so fucking emotional. They're so fucking emotional, Because like I said, I've kind of been binging on these cat videos. It's like they just can't get themselves together. They're always on the edge of losing it. and then that guy right there, that guy, and then they have to take a moment. Okay, calm down. And then the bad man did this bad thing. And who would do that? It's like it's a foreign concept that people are pieces of shit. And there's evil in this world, so it's kind of frustrating, you know what I mean? Hey, all right, call up the female cop to come talk to this broad. Or maybe you need the male cop who's in, control of his shit. All right, look, all right. Because then it's not sister on sister, hey, besties, but it's like, okay, you are in the presence of fucking superiority. Just saying, okay, don't hate me on that. Okay, tell me what happened. No, it's all right, take a breath. All right, okay. So, and I've got the video for it. You'll see what I'm talking about. And there's a level of sympathy, and the one girl shows up, and puts her arm, and it's like, fuck. And it's like, it's over, But like 30 minutes later, she's still like, and then you want that chick flying wingman or woman on your fucking side, when you're up there in aerial combat? Give me a magazine. No, you don't want that bitch on your goddamn side. Stay home, bake the cakes, raise the children, So let the men, do their thing, okay? And like I said, he's occasionally allowed, man, this guy, whatever, fuck you. We different. But anyway, so when I'm sober, I do have the plans to kind of, take some notes and present some shit about just the human condition, right? So, because it just is what it is. And like the older chick, she's not as bad. She at least has her composure, And the other chick, she's just like, fuck. It's just a little less toned down, The one chick is, she's delivering, okay? She's at least has, well, so does the other chick. It's just a little bit, who does that? I'll tell you who does that motherfucker right there. so anyway, fucking man, people, man, fucking. Like I said, the more complex something is, the more prone it is to, failure. So I've got some videos, and I'm gonna go ahead and, I'm gonna, attempt, to do some narrative shit. And fuck these motherfuckers, You did what you did, this, that, and the other. So it just got me thinking. It's just because I've mentioned that before, these fucking bitch motherfuckers, these world of, Call of Duty heroes, who in real life are fucking zeros, who manage to be, cops or even worse, armed security. And it's just so blatantly obvious, and it's like, this motherfucker, you fucked up, dude. And there's just like this therapist dude who analyzes it, and it's like, bing, 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 that's it. This guy just got tired of losing, so he decided to pre-set something up. And I'll have to watch it again, but I'm pretty sure on his body cam, there's something that's kind of blatantly obvious. I don't know, I was up, making eating a banana or some shit. I just wasn't, but I just sort of, it's like, whoa, Jack. No, I think that was an accurate, hand down. Because he got charged with second-degree murder. And the therapist is like, no, I'm thinking kind of third-degree manslaughter. And it's like, well, I don't know, man. Because, the human mind, it's like, coincidence. So it's like, well, the body cam shows that the vehicle wasn't moving. It was him moving. So I'm kind of thinking that almost ups it into first-degree murder, personally. And then when he says, he just got tired of losing. And just all the shit, want to bet? Get out of the car. And then he pauses and he thinks, it's like, what authority do you actually have? Can you break the window out and drag this motherfucker out of the car? What are you working with? You're in the wrong business, bro. You were a fucking master, shot caller, in Call of Duty, but now that you're an armed security guard, it's just, it's your ego, dude. And you see this fucking vest that says, and you just got tired of it. And he was bad as well. He wasn't thinking. He wasn't, like, okay, I need to take control. These people aren't communicating with these people. I'm the one who's catching shit from this motherfucker who's employed from these people. So I need to say, I need to get these people with these people. I need something in writing so that I can present it to this minion, this dog, who's employed by these people, and say, stay off my fucking dick, you fucking fag. But he didn't do that. He was just like, no, you ain't. He's like, yes, I am. No, you ain't. Yes, I am. And, of course, he walked away, and the dude was like, you just said, want to bet? Well, apparently he won that bet. Okay, let's call the PD. So, well, why are you talking this shit? If you can't back it up. You need to leave now. He's not going to leave, and just boom, 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 boom. And that's why I want to present. And I knew that from the get-go. I saw that. I'm like, this is a dangerous situation. You have two people, and I'm not trying to, pat myself on the back, but at the same time I am. And you'll see what I mean, dear online family friends, because no doubt you'll watch the video. But it's like, okay, here you got a guy. You have two individuals who are not seeing the big picture. They're both going based on information, and they're both ignorant. There's a bigger picture. There are facts and circumstances that you are unaware of that could solve this. And that's another thing, too, with like these cappers. It's like, answer their fucking question. That way you take them off the table. You take it off the table. And then you just give them two more, what's this? What's that? I told you, this, that, the other. You boom, boom, this, that. And then it's just, whatever. And then you just look at them. You've won. You've taken that off the table. And that's why I want to do this, and I'm kind of rambling all over the place. And like I said, I am, a couple sheets in the wind right now. But it was something that I just noticed. It's like, this is a very good example of human behavior. Because just like Satan, I'm not necessarily a student of human behavior, but I do notice it, whether I want to or not. And it is in a person's best interest to, be able to comprehend it and understand it and leave your goddamn fucking emotions out of it, because it doesn't help anything. And, dude, yeah, there's this lawyer. There was another thing. He had mentioned that. He recognized that. It's like, if you up the stakes, it ups the stakes with him, and then it ups the stakes for you. And now the stakes are just upped. So who upped the stakes in the first half? And that's another thing with the thing and the whatnot. The dude, sprayed some pepper spray, and it's like, now you've just hyped everything up. You didn't need to do that. Why did you pull in halfway? Why didn't you pull in all the way? Well, it's because you need to fucking leave. So it's almost like subconsciously, he's like, I'll give you a fucking out, and he just didn't want to lose. He was tired of having his punk bitch ass handed to him by this dumb shit, who was a nobody. Like, if he was absolutely, in the presence of, what the hell, cognitive superiority, he might, I don't know how it would work. But he was in presence of this dude who just barely had enough to tell him to fuck off. And it was just driving him fucking crazy. And I do believe that was first-degree murder, that sort of presented itself as second-degree. But this psychologist dude who was like, I think it was more third-degree as opposed to second. It's like, well, I'll have to rewatch it again, but I'm kind of, you nailed it when you said that this, Call of Duty hero, who, and he was, I guess he was in the Air Force, but that don't mean jack fuck all shit. Like, even if you were in the Marines, it just depends, on what your experience was. Maybe you went through some PTSD shit, and there's just different levels of that shit, we're soldiers, we're here to accomplish a job, so you got the fuck boy who's like, bah, 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 Get some, get some. And then you got the guy who's like, whoa, 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 hey, suppressive fire, we're going to do some shit, traverse that shit. Don't just pick a window, and, we're spraying shit down range, and okay, we got these guys kind of on the limit. Hey, call in some, A10s, hey, we're playing to win here, fucking, whatever you're trying to do, So it's like the fact that you was a Marine combat, veteran, get some. I can handle my business. It's like, no, you're a punk, dude. You just managed to, make it through. You were part of a group of people all sending rubber bands down range, depending on the different levels of, leadership, Maybe you got a guy who's like, hold steady, hold fire, whatever. But just the fact that you were part of a fucking group, you went through boot camp, 6 months, a year, or whatever, then you went overseas, doesn't fucking mean you're this hardened, solid dude. You could be a fucking spurred to the nth degree. Combat veteran, got PTSD and all the fucking works. You ain't fucking shit, boy. You're a fucking punk. So it doesn't matter if you're a Marine or if you were a fueler, at an Air Force base, whatever, Military don't necessarily mean you're shit. If anything, it just makes you fucking worse. Because every individual comes to the game with their own set of circumstances. Because he had said that, 6 years in the Air Force. Wow, no shit. Good to know. I appreciate you told me that. You told me that thinking that's going to be a good thing. Now I'm kind of thinking the opposite. You fucking punk. But anyway, I'm just hammering away 26 minutes in, so we'll get that bullshit out fairly quick. I just couldn't help but notice, you know what I mean? It's like, it is, people tend to kind of follow patterns, Put your hands behind your back! Put your hands behind your back! I got a dog in the car! What the fuck does that even mean, shithead? What, you gonna open the car and let the dog out? Or, it's like that was the dumbest thing you could ever fucking say. You just gave the game away, dude. You are a bitch. You are a Call of Duty hero, in real life zero, fucking punk. You never should have fucking left your mom's basement. And that's why I said, the dude who was in the Air Force for 6 years, it's like, okay, you went over here, you were in the Middle East, hell, you got your eardrum blown out because of a shell that exploded nearby. I'm sure, no doubt, you consider yourself, the opening scene in Saving Private Ryan where they're storming the fucking beach. No doubt you consider yourself that fucking dude. Because you were fucking, cleaning up some fucking oil, a grease stain, and a hanger, because you were in the fucking Air Force, and, you're the guy who, fueled and, hell, whatever you did, clean the toilets. And then all of a sudden an air attack came, and all of a sudden you're this combat hardened PTSD motherfucker. No. You are who you are, no matter what you do or don't go through, you fucking punk. And the fact that you decided, to follow that pursuit, of, armed security and everything that you did, you're an absolute bitch. You are a pussy bitch. You are a punk. You are a basement-dwelling Call of Duty hero, in real life zero, who went through some real life shit. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you were the guy cleaning up the grease stains in the airplane hangar, or if you were the dude, get some. And your comrade's like, dude, calm down, save your ammo, fucking chill, fucking bro. You're a fucking punk. So anyway, be expecting that audio masterpiece very, very soon.